My name is Mia Reed, and I'm a solutions architect at PPM360. The purpose of this session today is to talk about PPM360, a customizable app that extends Microsoft Planner. We're going to talk about PPM360 and how it relates to organizations in the retail sector. I'm sharing my screen now, and what we're looking at is the PPM360 homepage. You'll notice that there's a menu over here on the left that we can use for navigation. One of the things I'd like you to know going into this session is that PPM360 is configurable. We use this as a pre-configured solution, and we make customizations based on conversations with our customers. We gather the requirements, and then we build a version of PPM360 specifically for them. We work with a wide variety of customers, and we've had our fair share of customers that work in retail. So today, what we're going to do is talk about some of the scenarios that they found themselves in and how we worked with them. So the first thing that we'll note with retail customers is that a lot of times they'll have different needs within their one organization. They may have a marketing team that needs something very simple and straightforward. They may have an IT team that needs something that is a lot more comprehensive. So we'll look at some of the different options, and no matter how many business units or departments you have, we can set up PPM360 so that it'll fit the needs of each one of those different groups. Now on the home page, there's this left menu that we use to navigate. And at the beginning of the project lifecycle, we typically begin with intake. So I'm going to click on the project intake link here. This will open up our intake app. And what we'll see here is the intake portal with a list of the existing requests. I have one request that I started ahead of time today. And what we're going to do is we'll view the high-level information, but I'm going to open this so we can view this draft. With intake, this is the process we use to determine whether an idea should become a project or not. We use this form so that a person can fill it out and describe their idea. So this request information page is where we capture details about the request itself. When we're finished here, we'll move on to the project details page, which gives us more information about the project. So we get an idea of the timeline and the expected benefits here. The scoring tab allows us to score any item. So you'll see we have the business drivers listed here, and then each one has a score associated with it. Sometimes these scores are weighted, but what we do are these values are weighted, and we use those to calculate a priority score here. That way, when people are determining which requests to move forward with and create projects from, they have one way to be able to measure them against each other. The Attachments tab is a great place for us to add any files. If there's a file that is going to give more information about this request, we can attach it here so that the reviewer has a chance to look at it. This is one example of what the intake form could look like. There are a lot of nice things we can do here with adding helper text for these. The check marks here let us know that all of the required fields filled in. So what we're going to do here is I'll go ahead and submit this. That will generate an email and start the approval process. Now, there are some customers that have different pages that will show throughout the approval process, and they may have multiple layers of approval. For us today, we're just going to have that one approval step, and what we'll be able to do is the approver will review it, they'll be able to look at the requests that we filled in, and then they will either approve or reject. If they approve, then a new project will be created. New projects are easily accessible. When someone is assigned as the PM on a new project, they'll get an email notification letting them know. We'll also have this handy button here that will let you click on it to access the project. Remember, we also have our menu over here on the left. So using this left menu, we can go ahead and navigate over to the projects. Now, there are multiple types of projects. If we have, for example, a marketing team and an operations team and an IT group, a group for developing new products, they may all have very unique and different needs. So what we're going to look at next is going to be a couple of different types of project that could fit the needs of those different groups. So what we'll do is I'm going to open up a project. I'm going to click on Plans here. This is our timeline view, and this view shows us where each project is. We get to see when it's scheduled, but also how far along it is. And notice that we can hover over these just to get an idea of some of the details here. I'm going to open up a demo project, and I just want to walk through a general project. This is what we call PPM360, and this is our out-of-the-box solution. Part of what we'll see are Financials 360 later on. We'll also see PPM360 Lite for people that don't need quite as much as what we're seeing here. A little bit of orientation when we open up a typical PPM360 project. We can see that there's a workflow along the top. As the project manager works through their project, and they'll move stage from stage, they'll go ahead and click on this item to indicate that they've completed the deliverables, and then this will get sent out for approval. The approver will have access to view the project and confirm that everything is in its right stage, and then when they approve, the project moves into planning. All of this information that we're seeing here can roll up into reports, so it's a nice way to be able to get an overall view of the projects within your portfolio. Below the workflow, we'll see that there are different tabs, and each tab has different information and a different purpose. The Summary tab has a lot of general information about the project, and a lot of it's pre-filled based on the intake request. You'll notice also here that there are options to sync a project with Microsoft Teams, and also options to sync with Microsoft Planner. You'll also see that we can associate a project with a program and/or a portfolio. The portfolios and programs are all coming together here. This is where we define a program or a portfolio, and then we get to view the overall program and portfolio details on these pages. So general information here on the summary page. The project charter also tends to have a lot of information from the intake request. So here we'll see the information from your project charter represented as different columns or fields on this page. The status tab is what we'll use for our weekly status updates. So you can see here that we've got one status update in here already, and I'll open this up and just we'll get a look at how this appears. Each time that we're creating a status report, this is what we're filling in. We have some fields that are pre-filled, like the owner and the project name, but we will fill in the status indicators. This is where we'll put in whether our project is at risk, or if it's in trouble, or if it's on track. Notice that overall health is calculated. So if one of these is at risk, then the overall project will be at risk. If one is in trouble, then the overall project will be in trouble. We'll see this update on the main project when we save this page. For now, as we look at the rest of the status report, you'll see that we can enter in our recent accomplishments, our next steps, and any additional comments that we have. Our goal is to make things as easy and streamlined as possible for the end users. So we've added a couple of things in here to make it really simple to use this. First, if we want to share our status reports, then the submitted to field here works very well for that. When you enter a name in this field and then you save and close this entry, it will generate an email to the person whose name is here. And it'll generate an email with a very nicely formatted status report. So it's a quick and easy way to share this. Another thing that we've built in here is the option to copy a status report. If yes is selected here and we save and close, it'll create a copy of this. And that way, for the next week, when I'm going to create my status report, all I need to do is just make updates to what's here already. So if you're moving from one week to the next and there haven't been that many big changes, or you just want to add to what was here, you can do that using this copy feature. I'm going to click Save and Close here. And we'll see here on the status summary that this is updated based on the entries we just made. All right. Next, I'm going to go over to the Financials tab. And this is where we can enter in some very light financial data about our project. So it's very straightforward with the budget, forecast, and actuals, a place for us to enter in information about our benefits, and then there are calculated fields for the remaining budget and the budget variance. We'll see in a little bit later with Financials 360 that we can add a lot here. So we'll come back and talk more about that in a little bit. If we move over to the Tasks tab, the Tasks tab is basically Microsoft Planner, which is sitting right here. So remember, PPM360 is an extension of Microsoft Planner. For everybody that just needs to enter in tasks and quickly get started with those tasks, Planner is really great for that. But if you need something that's more of a project and has a life cycle and has an intake process or any one of those things, then extending it with an app like PPM360 can be really helpful. So everything you know about Planner still fits in here. And then we've added a couple of things. A lot of our customers asked about baselines. For a lot of people that have been in the Microsoft area for quite some time, they'll remember that Project Online had baselines. So what we've created here is the option to create a new baseline at any time. You can see that I'm currently on baseline 2. You can see that I took this baseline earlier today. And here is the snapshot of my schedule from baseline 1. There are up to 15 baselines. So if I want to view baseline 2, I can update my view here and see that. We got a lot of feedback when we were working with Project Online that there were only 11 baselines possible. So we've extended this a little bit to give you a few more. And then if you wanted to capture additional fields or columns here, we could talk about that and customize this for you. There's also a place to log risks. So as we are capturing risks for our project, we can enter those in here. We have different views for this. There's a board view, and then you can toggle it over to a grid view if you prefer that. We'll get to see the grid view in one of the other projects that I'll show you a little bit later on. We can track issues here as well. This particular project doesn't have any issues, but it looks on the front end a lot like the risk view. Decisions are a great place for us to capture conversations and decisions that we make during calls. If there's something bigger than a decision, an actual change that is going to affect our resources or our scope, our budget or our timeline, we can capture those here under changes. And this actually includes a workflow so that we can capture the approval of that change. And then there's also lessons learned. Lessons learned are here throughout the project. So as you're working on things, if lessons are uncovered, it's great to be able to enter those in here. And then at the end of the project, meet up with the team so that we can review those and make sure we're all on the same page. So this is a great example of a typical project. This does feed into reports. We'll come to reports later on near the end of this session. The next thing I want to show is an option for people that may need a little bit less than this. So if the workflow here and the number of tabs here is too much for you, then there is an option in PPM360 Lite. Here you can see that this actually does have a workflow, but it is typical that we will not include the workflow with PPM360 Lite. Again, that is an option that is up to you. But if you look at the tabs here, it's a lot more streamlined. We've got the summary tab that we saw before, tasks, risks, issues, and status. You may also look at this and feel like you might need a little bit more than what's here. We do have another option that will show financials in detail. So I'm going to open up another project and we'll look at that. So we'll navigate to the financials tab here, and instead of just the high level section that we saw before, we will see that there is a section down below. So here we can see that we can capture our budget, and we capture different line items here. When we click the plus here, we add a new line item and we can define it. So you can see here for this project, we're looking at licensing. It's an operating expense for software, and it's for fiscal year 2023. This is an older project. And then for each month, we can put in what our budget is. Okay, so the next thing that we can do as we scroll down is view the actuals. As we move through and we start to spend money on these items, we can enter it here. And then further down, we've got the forecast. So we can track this throughout the project, throughout the year. We can add additional line items for separate years. Purchase recs, purchase orders, and invoices are also included. And typically what we'll do here is we can sync this with another application so that we can automatically have these flow into your project. This is usually a one-way sync to protect the data in your financial system. And that's something we would do through requirements gathering with your finance team. All right. And then if you wanted to add these manually, there is, of course, that option as well. All right. So what I have done here, but not really mentioned explicitly yet, is that here I am one person at one company, Marquee 360, and we have these multiple different project types. So if we have, for example, a marketing team that needs to have some projects, they can use something like PPM360 Lite so they can quickly and easily get started. If we have additional teams, right, maybe we have one that needs to view the full project, like an operations team. New product development is another section that we work with a lot with our retail customers who tend to not need the full project. So with all of these different needs, we can all work together in the same system using PPM360. We can do this in different environments or have it set up so that when you log in as a member of marketing, you see the marketing project type and you go ahead and create your projects. Meanwhile, your neighbor that's in IT will log in and they'll see their IT projects. So there are different ways to set that up. No matter which way you use PPM360, there are also reports available. The reports cover multiple parts of PPM360. The first one here is related to the request, that intake request that we saw earlier will show here. And here, what we can do is view how these requests look. If there's anything that needs attention, right? If there's something that is waiting for approval, we can identify that here in the status column or in the chart here. So we can look at what's submitted and then make sure that these two requests are getting the attention they need. Maybe there's somebody that is supposed to approve that's out of the office or something like that, so we can make sure to follow up. Portfolio health is going to show us all of the projects, and it focuses on health. So if there's a project that is at risk or critical, we would be able to see that here and make sure that we give those projects the support that they need. The portfolio dashboard is great with general information about your projects. So we get to see here a list of all the projects. And with Power BI, they always have these filters over here that we can use. So if we want to look at a specific department or a specific group or even a specific project manager, we can use these filters to really narrow things down. There's also a timeline. So as we're planning to see when we start a new project, we can use this timeline to help us make informed decisions. On the intake requests earlier, we put in the proposed dates for our projects. So we can display those here and decide, looking at this, who should work on it. So if we see where we are today, looking at this, it looks like Allison is ready for a new project and soon Stella will be as well. So if we're planning a project to start around here, we've got a couple people that we know are available to start on that project. That planning that we can do ahead of time will prevent us from getting into trouble with over allocations or under allocations in the future. So this is really valuable. We can track milestones, program level data, portfolio level data as well. status reports for individual projects, overall risks across all projects, right? I have filters that are added here, so we can use those so that we can focus on a specific group of projects. We've got issues that we can view too, changes as well. With resources, we can use the assignments to make sure that we are looking at what people are assigned to before we add more to their plate. This report has a couple of different layers. We can see the resource name, the projects they're working on, and then we can also see the individual tasks. What this does also is if we look at just the dates here, it looks like this resource is available right now. But if we look a little bit deeper, we can see that as far as the progress goes, this resource isn't completed with their work yet. So before assigning them to something new, we may want to check and see if they have availability. It may be that this project is going on hold and this work will be completed and rescheduled later on, but this gives us that visibility. We can also use the resource availability heat map to see if someone is over or under allocated. Right here, we've just got white and red, but we can incorporate different colors so that we can look at different thresholds. And that lets us know how over or under allocated someone is, or if they're in that sweet spot where they have the right amount assigned. We can look at tasks overall, and there's also a whole project timeline where we can look at projects, but also the individual tasks on that project. So lots of interesting ways to look at the data here. Our customers have also asked us for specific things in these reports. So keep in mind that these are our out-of-the-box reports, but we are very happy to make updates and adjustments to these so that you can see things in other ways and get more insights into your projects. I hope that during this time, you've been able to see the range of possibilities when it comes to PPM360 projects. You can choose out of anything that we saw today, what fits best for you. And even when you choose what fits best for you, you may have another department in your organization that has different needs. So it is possible to have multiple configurations for different groups. Thank you so much for your time today. If there's anything that you would like to know more or see more of, then please feel free to contact us. Thank you.